The first module of the 12 essential modules for disaster preparedness is shelter and clothing. What are the survival aspects that are required of a shelter in a disaster situation? Well, normally our homes provide us first a roof over your head to keep you dry from rain and snow. Second, walls to protect you from the chill factor of the wind and low temperature. Third, the walls also help keep threats from outside the shelter. Now, normally we think of that as large predators. So, for example, our cabin is located in an area where there's bears, so it keeps the bears out. But I recall one time when I was watching a survival show that was going to take place in the jungle, that one of the individuals that was participating was a Green Beret, and he brought a mosquito net. And at first I thought, what? He doesn't bring something to start a fire with, he doesn't bring a survival knife, and then I thought, that is brilliant. Because having watched previous shows in the jungle, one of the biggest aspects that would cause great grief was the bugs. And having camped in Florida in the wrong season, if you will, and at the wrong place, all I can say is the little mosquitoes pick you up and carry you over to the bushes where the big ones can eat you. So by taking that mosquito net, it was a very smart move, because they were able to sleep at night and be rested for the next day when they did their various survival activities, versus other contestants sleeping in the jungle being chewed up and bitten by mosquitoes and other insects all night. They were just beat. And after a few days, they seemed like they could barely hold on to their sanity. So an interesting piece of survival equipment if you go to the jungle. Now, the normal situation that a house provides, the fourth thing is a shelter should keep us warm or cool as the temperature requires. And fifth, most modern shelters provide utilities such as electricity, heating and cooling, water, and hot water. Now, most homes in America have a great deal of possessions which can be used for disaster preparedness. So 98% of the time, a person and a family would be best to shelter in place, to bug in. It's very analogous to a naval ship at sea. If you've ever read any accounts of like the USS Indianapolis sinking in World War II, the last thing you want to do is to go into the water with oil floating there, with sharks after you, no protection or minimal protection from the sun. If at all possible, stay with the ship, and also, if at all possible, stay in your home. Now, there might be some obvious exceptions to that. I have a relative that lives in Florida, and when hurricane comes in, he hooks up his Airstream trailer to his pickup truck and drives out of the area, goes visits one of his sons or his grandchildren, and the Airstream trailer is safe, and they're safe, and they're good to go. But normally you should stay with your home environment, because there's such a plethora of inventory of items there that can be used for survival, and that's your legal place of residence. Now, if you are forced to relocate or bug out, a car can be used for shelter. With a car, it will be helpful to have enough space to stretch out on the seats or in the back of the car. So to give you a pragmatic example, a great car for that was the Nissan Pathfinder. I drove one of those from the continental U.S. to Alaska and back, and essentially in the back of the Nissan is where I and the dog slept. And so it was a great vehicle for that. I currently have a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and one of the selling points was the back seat folds down and you have room enough that you can sleep there. Now, camping outdoors is another solution if you have to be mobile. Now, camping gear should be seen as a system. First, you need a roof over your head. That can be provided by a tent, a tarp, or a hammock. And I currently prefer to take a tent, but I can remember as a teenager in South Dakota that we would use tarps in our winter camping. You would put down your ground cloth, put down your sleeping bag, and then throw a tarp over yourself, and you actually would pray that it would snow that night, because the snow would act as insulation and actually keep you warmer. Other camping equipment should include a ground cloth, the sleeping pad, and a sleeping bag. Now, also a recreational vehicle can be a ready substitute for a shelter. Once again, on my trip up to Alaska, my son-in-law and my daughter used a tab trailer, and it worked out well. So that's another viable means of shelter. Let's now turn our attention to clothing. What clothing is essentially a microenvironment to keep you warm or to help you stay cool and protect you from the sun. Now, the most important portion of that is your shoes, I submit. And I prefer to use a quality hiking shoe from Merrell or REI or Vasquez. I will tell you, for years and years I wore Vasquez Sundowners, which are all leather. They're beautiful. I probably went through 3 pairs of those, but I have migrated to hiking work boots, the ones that go over your ankle, that are soft. And that's available from Merrell, REI, and Vasquez. Although recently I bought a pair of Merrell Moab Tactical 2, and I think that's wonderful if you're not carrying a heavy backpack. The next thing is to have the proper socks, and my experience is you want merino wool. There's another brand name under that of Smart Socks or PhD socks. You want to have those, and the combination hopefully of the soft quality hiking shoes and the merino wool is it'll decrease the probability that you will get blisters. Also, probably almost as equally important is what I call foul weather gear. And this is a top and a bottom, pants to keep the rain and the cold away. And you will find, at least in my pursuit of the perfect foul weather gear, is it's pretty hard to obtain because you have 4 different seasons. So I have what I refer to as light, medium, and heavy. The light being for summer type conditions, a medium that will work in the summer but also the spring and also in the fall, and then a real pinch will also work in the winter, and then what I call heavy foul weather gear that would definitely work for the winter. So let me illustrate that to you. In the winter, as a heavy, I wear a heavy Gore-Tex line jacket with a hood, and the hood is very important to have, that it pulls it up and it really protects the back of your neck. So something like this can be obtained at most hunting stores or Cabela, and it will really keep the cold and the wind out. And then I do have a matching bottom to that pants, but what I use is just some snow pants, and that works really well, and I like the idea of there being suspenders on them. And then underneath that, depending on how cold it is, I'll have a medium fleece jacket, And in really cold weather, I'll even have a light fleece jacket. Also, you want to make sure that you have a light pair of gloves and some mittens. And the advantage of this is when you pull your hand out of your mitten, if you have to do some fine-tune work with your hands, at least your hand is covered by the light gloves. In addition, you'll want a hat, and what I usually wear is something like this that covers your head and also your cheeks and the back of your neck. And most of these type of things you can fold them around in different ways, where it can just be a cap or it can go in full configuration. And there's even heavier versions of this, such as this one here. It's all fleece, it's very heavy, and it covers everything but where you're going to have your sunglasses. And more in the summertime, I would wear something that I refer to as medium, and the perfect example of that would be like an Army rain suit. Here's the top for it, and this is quite old. This is probably 15 years old, and it still is in wonderful condition. It still works well. And a little story on that is I never could find the size that I wanted in surplus Army Navy stores. And I noticed that the manufacturer was Raven Industries in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I called them up and I said, I know you sell these to the military. These are the pants for it. Will you sell them to a civilian if I have a credit card? And they said, we'll switch you over to the retail consumer division, and they sold me a pair of this. And I suppose if I had to pick one foul weather set of gear, it would be the Army Gore-Tex lined ring system. Now for light wear, this is what I actually wore on the El Camino, the pilgrimage that's 500 miles long in France and Spain. I simply wore it for the top. It was a Mountain Hardwear rain top, and then to, I guess, mix and match, I wore some North Face rain pants. And I had only just one light fleece jacket. I did have gloves with me. I just really needed these from the warmth of them when I crossed the Pyrenees, the mountain range between France and Spain. But so it was cold there, it was high altitude, and these were great. But I also found them very helpful when in the middle part of the 500 miles you cross what's called the Spanish Meseta. And it's like hiking across Kansas. It's flat, sunny, windy, and these protected my hand, because when you hike day after day after day in the sun, you just feel like you're getting sandblasted or sunblasted. So these protected me from the UV rays as far as my hands. On the face I used a buff. You can get these at hiking stores, and you pull it over your head and you can cover pretty much everything except for where you have your sunglasses. And then on that particular trip on the El Camino, this was the hat from, once again, from OR, and this was great for rain protection and also sun protection. Another key aspect that I would recommend for disaster recovery if you have to do a lot of hiking would be to have a pair of sandals, and high quality ones. These are Teva. At the time I bought these in Spain, but I noticed they're now available in the US, and this was helpful from a number of perspectives. One, when you stopped at night, you could switch from your hiking boots into your sandals, and then also sometimes I'd hike in my hiking boots during the day, but then in the morning, but in the afternoon I would use the sandals. Also, you want to, in your pack, keep not only your foul weather gear, but also your clothing dry, and so I always pack any of my clothing in a Sea to Summit bag, and you twist these up and you roll them up and you clip them here, and it will keep your clothing dry. So one of the first priorities is finding shelter, and then the other item is to always have on you clothes that you could curl up at night underneath a tree, and in the morning when you wake up you're still there and you don't have frostbite of your toes and fingers. Now, I don't always wear those with me. In the wintertime I simply have a bag in my car with all of these winter clothing in it. Now, occasionally, like when I hiked across the Meseta in Spain or down in Florida, you want lighter weight clothing. So this shirt here is a Colombian fishing shirt that's actually pretty popular. It's very lightweight, it's very cool, it's got vents on it, and it's great for that. Also for hotter weather, or if you go out in the Gulf of Mexico to go fishing or go out in open water, probably anywhere, this is an OR probably hiking / fishing hat, and you can see how it gives you a lot of protection around your head, and it keeps the sun off of your skin. So ensure you have proper shelter and proper clothing.